because they're still very good journalists, but some can't type fast enough, and some still have a phobia when it comes to, techie stuff. And sometimes you only sympathize with them. But what can you do?
So it seems like we're losing the battle between technology and man. So it seems like technology is becoming more and more permanent, and as a result, man is phasing out. So the person who be selling the daily graphic, on the roadside in Accra, is no longer there because now he's been replaced by, the internet. Hey everyone, I go by the name of Adrian Daniels. Welcome to the Sound of Accra podcast. If this is your first time listening, this is a show where we speak with top Ghanaian founders, entrepreneurs and creators worldwide with the aim of leaving behind the meaningful takeaways that you can apply in your life, business and career. For today's episode show notes, I'd like you to head over to thesoundofaccra.com/AS radio. That's thesoundofaccra.com/AS radio. That's ASRADIO. All right. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, get in the comments below, let us know what you think of this episode, hit the like button. If you're listening on a podcast place such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, a 5-star review is very much appreciated. All right, so for today's episode, I would like to introduce Mr. Carlton Cofie onto the show. He is the editor of Asaase Radio 99.5 here in Accra, Ghana, the voice of our land. They have many other stations across the nation, and we are in the Cantonment's Accra branch where they broadcast to Accra. Mr. Carlton Cofie, thanks for having me in the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time too. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So just to go straight into the interview, could you just tell us a little bit about your background as an editor? As I believe you've just you're fairly new here.
Yeah, I'm fairly new here. And what I do here, I'm the head of news, the news editor. So I have about 10 or so more, reporters who are under me. And generally what we do is a traditional newsroom style. So we come, then we have a news meeting. We look at the issues that are trending and those that we want to have a take on. Then we assign reporters to go and sometimes they are not very successful, but most times they're successful. So when the news come, what happens is that they write their stories, and then the system is networked. So I can edit their stories in the raw folder, then put it in the edited folder. So from the edited folder, we compile what's to be read for news.
Okay,
that's what happens on a daily basis.
Okay, so you take care of the traditional kind of media, as in like the
broadcast
radio. Okay, great. It's not necessarily the actual shows. Is it actual shows, or is it like the media that's read online?
Was read on the news aspect, but then I'm still in charge of the digital and the online. Okay. But then the old arrangement still persists, so I have to wait a bit so the demarcation comes and they come right under me. But what they have now is that there's a head of digital who handles the online and the digital aspect. Brilliant. But then we've seen that it would be nice to have the head of news in charge of all, and we want them to be part of the news because there are many angles that we take to a story. It would be good if they have an insight right from the beginning. They can tell us where they can take it from instead of waiting for us to brief them.
Absolutely.
So that's my idea. Well, my background is broadcasting I was at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation.
Wow.
That's a state broadcaster. So I was there from the Ghana Institute of Journalism, where I did my internship and then did my service. And I worked there for a few years before I went to England and then studied and came back.
Okay.
So on return to Ghana, I ventured into teaching. So I was in academia for 10 years. I was teaching broadcast, journalism, investigative reporting, most of the things associated with journalism and news production. Well, I was teaching all.
Wow.
And but then I'm no longer in academia. I've decided to come back to industry to have the feel because I was missing the industry so badly.
I can imagine. Yeah. Did you feel like you were out of touch, Mr. Carlton, when you went into teaching and you couldn't physically get involved in broadcast journalism itself?
Oh yes, I felt so trapped in a world that I wasn't too happy with,
No.
Yeah, because the thing about academia, Well, everything is what somebody else has done or said, and then you're, well, repeating them or researching them and the like. And then I found also that there's a huge gap still in the industry where most people are practicing mainly because they find it easy to get into broadcasting. Well, the problem we had in Ghana is most people get the frequencies, then now they decide what they want to do with it. Sometimes they find that it's too expensive to hire professionals. So what they do, well, is for friends and families get into broadcasting. And the sadness of that is some only get to know the basics of broadcasting when it's a bit too late because they've gone out there and done so many unprofessional things. And I was having that problem also in academia.
Wow.
Where you want to teach them some basics about journalism or broadcasting. And they have been watching some of the wrong things and trying to develop their career on most of the wrong principles. So when they come and you're telling them, well, this is the right way, well, some argue with you for a long time. So I thought, well, the right thing to do would be to get back to industry.
Yeah.
And then do the right thing. Let them see what is done. So at least when you're pointing someone to something, well, there's evidence.
Absolutely.
So I love being back in the industry.
I can imagine, yeah. And you mentioned you went to England to study your craft. Was it university you went to?
Yes, I was at Westminster University, Harrow campus.
Good old London.
Northwest
London.
Big time.
Harrow.
And I love Harrow. I miss Harrow big time.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember the days I used to go, because I was living in Watford at the time.
Okay, I know Watford, yeah.
Yeah, so I used to go with the bus 258, go to Harrow on the Hill bus station. Sometimes I could walk all the way to the campus near Northwick Park.
Yeah,
and
Northwick Park Hospital,
yes, I miss the experience. And one thing I miss also, there's this doner kebab.
I didn't expect that.
There's kebab land near the Harrow bus station. And I love that doner kebab so much. It's one thing I miss about Harrow, you know. Yeah.
My dad's a fan of kebab as well. I totally understand. And when you picked up, when you studied broadcast journalism in the UK and you came here, did you feel like, you picked up something that you could contribute to the industry here? Because you have a lot of, Ghanaians, diasporans, whatever, going abroad and then, building up their skill sets and then coming back to the country to make a contribution. Do you feel like, acquiring some skills and knowledge in the West and bringing it here has helped you?
Well, I did. The approach to work and the way you see things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that. And, because over here, well, we are an English colony, but I suppose there's still a lot we're learning from the English. So it's good to go there, experience them yourself, and then you come.
Yeah.
And, well, you could say, for example, some of the people go on air to read and, well, they tend to mispronounce some of the words and all that. But, well, with your exposure and all these, you could, well, alert them to what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. And it's great to be a living example to people. In the newsroom here where I am, I teach, well, in addition to editing their work, I still teach them, well, how to go about maybe the reporting, structuring their stories and doing interviews and reading. And so I think I brought a lot and I've imparted a lot of that in the classroom and I'm now doing it in the industry.
That's brilliant. And how does that make you feel, just being able to make that kind of impact, on your home soil?
It makes me feel so precious, because, every day after I've come here and done about 8 hours or so or 9 years, I still go home and the news for the following day comes to me in the evening and I have to edit that, let them have it for the morning to read. So yes, I think I'm making a great impact and they also appreciating me and it's a great feeling.
It's a quick turnaround industry, isn't it? It's like maybe the newspapers. I mean, you were in the UK, the Metros, the Daily Mails, the Sun, whatever it is. Quick turnover.
Absolutely.
That's journalism for you, isn't it? If you're quickly turning over and getting it out to the masses. I want to come back to journalism, but I want to kind of venture on and talk a little bit about Asaase Radio. I know Asaase means, land and tree.
Yeah.
Could you give me a very short, brief history about the radio station?
Need design for your startup? Switch to workspaceglobal.com, the internet's simplest design service. Skip the agency and freelancer headaches. Our platform connects you instantly to vetted creatives to get your logos, websites, and marketing materials fast, all managed for you by our team, software, and AI. so you can focus on what you care about most, growing your business. Try us for free, workspaceglobal.com.
Quite new?
Yeah, the station is fairly new. It's been in existence for barely 4 years. But then, yeah, as you said, the name Asaase means the land.
Yeah.
So, well, our slogan is the voice of our land. And the good thing about Asaase Radio, although it's quite new, the people behind the station are veterans. Some worked in the BBC. Yes, I mean, a few of the top guys worked in the BBC for decades.
Wow.
And they came to set up the place.
That's
and
amazing.
They're always watching over what we're doing. And then the other thing I want to mention is that most of the old broadcasters Ghana had, they started from the national broadcaster GBC. And even in GBC, you find that some of these old broadcasters are not as celebrated as they are here. When you come to Asaase, nearly every part of Asaase is named after a veteran broadcaster of Ghana. So the first day I came for an interview, I saw one of my top trainers, Cyril Akolache. His name was there and his picture was there. He was interviewing the president of Burkina Faso.
Wow.
And I mean, I had goosebumps all over me because that was one man who taught me interviewing and I loved him so much. And although he's passed on, I mean, coming here every day and seeing that picture, I mean, inspires me to do better. And I feel like he's listening to me or watching me. And I mean, it's great. You go to most of the studios and you see one is named after Elizabeth Ohene, a veteran broadcaster from Ghana who was at the BBC.
Yeah. He's the one that died. Like
no, she's alive.
Oh, she's alive. Sorry.
Yes. And the Komla Dumo was the one who died.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
one of the offices is named after Komla Dumo.
It's like painted in.
Exactly. And then one of the studios is named after Kweku Sechiado. He used to report for BBC, one of our top broadcasters. So, I mean, when you're here, you get that feeling of being among very elite broadcasters. Because you know someday you'll be celebrated as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that kind of what you're kind of aspiring to kind of like leave a legacy and be up there in the Hall of Fame with some of these legendary journalists?
Absolutely. Because over the last 10 years that I've been teaching, I suppose I've taught close to 5 or 6 or 7,000 journalists in Ghana. And, you know, when I first came to Asaase, one of the things that shocked me were 2 or 3 people who said, "Oh, sir, you taught me. Sir, you taught me." You have no idea the gratification you get when you go to a place and people remember you, I mean, for having taught them. And it's not just here. I go to places like the DVLA and then there's a student there wanting to assist me. So it's all over. The last time I was somewhere walking by the road and then someone hailed me from a taxi. Someone called out and mentioned Carlton. And I looked at it. I didn't even recognize her. And she said, "Oh, you taught me way back in GIJ." And I felt such a celebrity, you know. So that's the good thing, that I've made an impact and there's still people around who are learning from me. And sometimes you imagine what they would say if there was my obituary on the wall. And I wonder what they'd say really. So I feel I've made an impact and still making an impact. And I hope I'm around a little longer before, well, someday. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm sure you will. I mean, you've done a great job. It sounds like you've been passing on your skills and allowing the up and coming ones to kind of hone their skill sets and, you know, make a big contribution to the country and beyond. This is an interesting place we are in the world of like radio, media, journalism. You know, you're now starting to see maybe radio phase out a little bit more and more kind of like podcasting and digital, you know, YouTube and stuff. What's your kind of like thoughts on that? You know, because Asaase Radio, 2020, pandemic, arguably a pandemic baby, right? You know, 2020, you would think 2020 radio will be dead, but it's still going, especially in the country like Ghana. I think, you know, kind of more traditional media is still prominent, like Facebook, because of, you know, the way the country is. I mean, what's your thoughts on the state of journalism and media right now?
Well, I find that although we're doing well in broadcasting, we have to admit that the future is more digital. Yeah, it's more online. So the idea is that when news break and the like, sometimes, you know, it takes a while to produce a news report and all that. So sometimes we're quicker and the online department is there. So sometimes they lead. If there's a story that we sometimes they break the story and then we come around and get the other elements of it. So I think that's what everybody needs to embrace. And because people are no longer having the luxury of tuning into stations and waiting for particular shows to air before they hear it. they want to be able to maybe have some of these stuff that you can play back again and again and again and learn more, instead of maybe missing the opportunity just because you didn't tune in early, or somebody spoke too fast, or your radio set suffered some interference or the like. So I think it's great that we accept what the future is offering us, that digital is the way, and we have the news faster, quicker, and wherever you want it, anytime you want it, you have your news rather than wait for.
I know. Now it's on demand. It's Netflix, it's BBC iPlayer, it's 4 on demand, it's whatever, right? On demand. We don't have to wait for the program to come on. But the beautiful thing is, alongside on-demand programming, I mean, radio, TV, traditional TV is still in business. GTV is still there, Metro is still there, TV3 is still there, Asaase, Joy FM, some of the radio stations I kind of grew up listening to when I was, living in Ghana. It's good to see that these traditional media outlets are still finding a way to live alongside the future, which is digital. Do you feel eventually this is all going to phase out? And how soon do you think that'll happen, Mr. Carlton?
Well, I suppose radio has been around for over 100 years. And now that the stations are finding a way to have their reporters report across platforms, being radio, TV, and online, I think that's a very smart way. So if people are no longer being heard of regularly because people are mostly online, at least you see their work online. And if you do love them so well, you could now tune into what they're doing on radio. I suppose that's one way that I see it. And I think it's really good. So you go to like Multimedia, Joy FM, nearly all the reporters, they report across platforms. So that's where we're heading to. When I came, the idea was to have the newsroom, radio separate, sort of, and then there's the digital online. But then we've seen that there's the need for the convergence.
Yeah.
So now, just the other day, we had a meeting that employing journalists won't be limited to broadcast journalists anymore. We want versatile, journalists. So they can, report across platforms.
Wow.
Yeah. So now when you go on assignment and you come back, well, you do a radio story and then you do one for online as well. So it means that you want to be techie a bit, take some good images and be able to edit them and process them. So in my editing, I'll edit what you have for broadcast and then what you have for online, which is slightly more text, heavy with images. Yeah. So, well, that's the future, really. Yeah.
Amazing. That's incredible. And I mean, you just never thought that, you never expect that, these two can live side by side. But when you look at social media platforms, maybe Instagram or Facebook, people can post a video or whatever, an audio, write a post over, it's there. But then there's still an option to go live. So people still want to be, there's audiences that still want people to go live and be and arrive and be there. So it's quite interesting. So I think this kind of proves that, these kind of different types of media, traditional media, the radio, the conventional TV, can live alongside like the digital media where you can just choose whatever you want to listen to at any time.
Absolutely, you're right. That's just the way it is. So you find most of the stations, what they do, even on the breakfast show, well, they're streaming that as well. So you don't want to lose that online presence because your competitor is doing it, and you can't afford to not be seen there. So, we're trying to be very alert to that. But then I think, as I said in the beginning, the employers probably thought, well, let's have this separate. But then, I think they've learned. So the convergence is coming. And, so the presence online is just as good as.
So there's now a demand for more versatile journalists than just, one traditional journalist. And I guess it makes sense, right? Because they want to keep, the old, but then there's also the new that's coming in. So it does make a lot of sense. Very interesting. There's another thing I noticed, Carlton, is that usually, I mean, maybe going to Morning Star school just down the road, because we're in cantonments right now, just being in the car, of course, you usually see the guys handing out graphic, chronicle, whatever newspaper it is. Now I'm not really seeing that. What's going on? Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Now, unlike in England, where papers like the Metro, you pick them at the train station or bus stop, read and leave them, and somebody picks them. Because I brought that with me so much that I still I still go online and read online.
Yeah.
Now, the problem we have here is that it's become so expensive to produce just anything. The newsprint, everything is so expensive.
Yeah.
So I think the few publishers that are around, I think they're really struggling to survive. And then those even in the big media houses like Graphic.
Yeah.
And yes, they've realized that, well, they got online as well. And they realized patronage is getting lower and lower. And there are, as you said, that you won't find people thrusting newspapers at you anymore because everything is on the phone.
Yeah.
And it can be sad though.
Yeah.
There's a media house like New Times Corporation, one of the states. I think it's been really bad with them. So some of the friends I had there are complaining. Some have left, and some see a very bleak future because the print business is really suffering now.
Ooh.
And most of them also didn't have the skill to. I mean, they are not techy enough to do the online sort of thing. So some suddenly find themselves so archaic, and some are branching off into other things like public relations and the like. And sometimes you feel you feel sad for them, but that's the future. For instance, I was from the traditional media back in but then, training in England and all, because I did at Westminster University, I was at the School of Media Arts and Design. So we did the online, then we did broadcast as well. So all that equipped me with the skill, the hands-on training to process stuff for online and broadcast. But imagine, most of my colleagues can't do that anymore. So that is the only issue. But I think, people have to embrace change. And this is what change has brought. If they can make themselves adaptable to do online, because they're still very good journalists, but some can't type fast enough, and some still have a phobia when it comes to, techie stuff. And sometimes you only sympathize with them. But what can you do?
So it seems like we're losing the battle between technology and man. So it seems like technology is becoming more and more prominent. And as a result, man is phasing out. So the person who would be selling the daily graphic, on the roadside in Accra is no longer there because now he's been replaced by, the internet. It's just, it's incredible.
It's incredible. And even then, you find that even those of us who are versatile enough to do stuff across platforms, there is this new threat of artificial intelligence. And the other day we had a seminar on it, and some people just feel so threatened. They think, oh, wow, it won't be long when I can't do any reporting. But then we comfort them. We let them know that, machines can't do some of the things like features. They can't do some of the things like features and bring out the human element, something like the human interest stories. So we still need, humans to do the work, but the humans have to be versatile and be able to anticipate what is trending and how they can make themselves relevant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just about, it's that kind of in between that, learning how to use the AI, the technology, but also, being useful that you can still do something, right? Because technology hasn't completely replaced everything. You still need a human to do X, Y, Z. So it's that little sweet spot. Carlton, I really enjoyed this conversation. Could you tell us about some of your, any memorable moments you've had in your career, as a journalist, as an editor, that stand out to you?
There's one. I have a strong interest in malaria reporting. Since I returned to Ghana about 14 years ago. I've been working with this NGO called the African Media Malaria Research Network. And we've been doing this, and we were following the discovery of a vaccine. To protect children from malaria, such that when they even have malaria, it won't become the severe type that would kill them. And I was lucky enough to interview the inventor of the malaria vaccine.
Wow.
Dr. Joe Cohen. I was invited to Bill Gates Malaria Forum in Seattle, as they say.
Seattle.
This is Seattle. Seattle. It was nice. So I interviewed Joe Cohen, and that's a memorable occasion for me because that interview was done at the time they were going to disseminate some of the findings on the research they were doing into the vaccine and how the children were responding, because it was meant for children. And so we followed all that. And I tell you what, one of my great moments is talking to someone who discovered a vaccine for malaria.
Yes,
and
huge,
that's huge.
Huge, yeah. because Africa, I mean, malaria, affects the whole Africa, doesn't it? So that's a huge,
Absolutely.
it's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely huge. Yeah.
Okay. And any moments that you would say, just in general, in journalism, media as a whole, news media, journalism as a whole, that stand out to you, out there that come to mind? That
I suppose some of the maybe some of the stars, some of our local stars that we have helped over the years. Because when I was in broadcasting, I wasn't just doing news, I was doing programs, so I was doing DJ and the like. So a few of the thriving musicians, I interviewed them and I saw their beginning.
Yeah.
And then some have risen to become huge superstars. So
it's incredible, isn't it?
yeah, when I think of the role I probably played in their lives, there's a group like VIP. And well, you don't hear too much of them now. But when they first came on the scene, I was one of the first guys to play their tune.
Okay.
And when I hear people jumping to those tunes, and I just feel, well, I was one of the people that made you actually hear that tune for the first time. And it's a great feeling, Yeah. And I've interviewed people like Kojo NP and the others. And yes, like Jeduble Ambule. They come across as very nice guys. And it's nice when you have a close-up with them and you interview them. And it became like a fraternity. So some can call you, have a chat with you. And then occasionally you hear some of them have passed on, and you just imagine the relationship you had.
Yeah.
And how this is a world where you're not here forever. What you can do is leave an impact.
Yeah.
So make an impact. And then when you're gone, the legacy is there. So those are the things that influence my thinking. I sometimes I get humbled by, what broadcasting or journalism has done for my life.
Amazing. I mean, it's certainly not a boring career, and you must just think to yourself, okay, look, I've interviewed this person before they blew up, and then they blow up, and then you feel part of the journey, isn't it? Then you can say, oh, I interviewed this person, I interviewed that person, and then maybe even if you had an interview on the internet, it will resurface online, and the hits will go up because people all of a sudden looking for that person. And I think that's some of the special things of being like a journalist, in that sense, where you're helping someone get their break and then they blow up and then you feel part of the journey. But what's even more special is maybe when they blow up, they come back to you and that relationship continues. Or even so, maybe they will kind of bring you on to some of their projects, or, they'll get you involved in other things. And that relationship just keeps going.
It's fantastic, really. And then the other aspect, sometimes people in very dire circumstances will call a radio station and come with their problem. And then sometimes they are crying when you're doing the story. And then there's a lot of public sympathy. People want to help them. And it's all because you put the story out there and brought it to prominence. So you find that you're making an impact in the lives of many people.
Yeah.
And it's great also when sometimes you go somewhere and you speak and somebody says, well, I know that voice, Yeah. Yeah, it's a very fulfilling feeling to have. Yeah.
Because you kind of become part of someone's routine, essentially. Let's say if a breakfast show or drive time show, lunch. I think for me, when I was, it was for me like going home from Morning Star, it was, just a drive time show, or maybe in the evening or something like that. It becomes part of your routine. So, I think people underestimate the power that radio journalists and media journalists and all these types of journalists have.
Yeah, true. And only thing though is that, we were trained traditionally to never try to impose yourself on the audience. The broadcast quality has best practices like being humble, being honest, not trying to be bossy and the like. But that some people think that's from the old school, and what I find rather is the modern crop of broadcasters, well, they are completely contrary to some of us. They want to impose themselves on you, and then they do all manner of things, and it's about them.
Yeah.
One of the things that sometimes I think about, back in GBC, for instance, the training we had is like, if you're on air, you don't mention your name more than 3 times.
Yeah.
Yes, sometimes we were told to even just mention your name twice. At the beginning of the show when you introduce yourself, and then when you're signing off. Yeah, but what do we have today? we have presenters who mention their names at every sentence,
Wow. Because they really want to push their brand, isn't it?
They're over pushing it. And I don't know, but sometimes I tell them that's probably one of the reasons maybe radio is not achieving the impact that it's supposed to be achieving, because when you listen to BBC and the like, the reason BBC is still relevant is because they listen to what the people want. The approach is one of professional humility and decency, good taste and all. But then you come over here and people, they have no qualms about being obscene. They say, talk about things of obscenity and vulgarity. And so when I analyze these things, I think, well, there's still something we can do, really. But then it's like a tidal wave is so strong, and a lot of the bad practices are taking over the good practices. And so sometimes I am a bit concerned when I think
I can imagine.
Things. Yeah.
So, guys, Mr. Carlton Cofie, editor of Asaase Radio and veteran journalist. Thank you for watching. Just to remind you, you can head over to thesoundofacra.com/AS Radio for all of today's key wisdom points, links, references. We'll have a link to Carlton's Facebook, and we'll have his email address in there if you want to reach out to him. You know, he knows exactly what he's doing in the industry and in the world of journalism. So you can reach out to him for support, for training, for all of that good stuff. And I'm sure he'd be more than happy to support you. And if you enjoy this conversation, get into the comments in the YouTube and let us know what you thought of today's episode. Get in touch, info@thesoundofacra.com if you want to talk about anything else. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review and let us know what you think over there. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.